I'll share my screen, but I can't download them from work.
Well, that's weird, isn't it?
Oh, there's just so much cyber security at work. So you're not allowed to do anything anymore.
I think that's like a lot of people's works, isn't it? Yours is a bit like that, Meg, isn't it?
I get around it.
Yeah, we've got the same on mine, but if you're clever enough, you can. I have to drop out of our network, I think it's called, or something like that. But I have to drop out of it and then I can save it.
Oh yeah, I can't be bothered. I just got 2 laptops. Mostly because obviously like our work ones will spy on us because obviously we're education. So if you're doing anything you shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's probably easier to have your own one, isn't it? Just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't even want them to know my Sainsbury's shop, to be honest. So
It's true. Hi, Arabella. Are you joining her? Sorry, did I point out that you were here? You're welcome to join us. You're going to make some notes. You got your notebook? Good. I've got mine as well, so we should be all right. Yours is bigger than mine. Mine's only a little one.
I'm writing a story.
Oh, are you?
way more interesting.
Is it going to be about, are we going to be in the story?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, sorry, you have read that to me this morning. I should know that, sorry. Sus.
bad mummy.
Do you want to just get into it, Vic?
Yeah, shall I? Right, let me make sure I can share it. So share.
It's being recorded. You should be able to share, okay? Yeah.
I'm hoping that it will do, yeah. So I don't think you'll be able to see me when it comes up, but can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just waffle. I've not made any notes because I talk about this stuff all the time. So I'll probably repeat myself quite a lot anyway. So I thought we'd do a little bit of neuroscience because we're all learning about ourselves. Is it going to click through? Have I got...
Sometimes you can use like the arrows on your keypad.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That'll be better. Okay, so I've done a little agenda. So this is the things I'm going to try and cover. So in terms of intro, right, this is how I've learned to know this stuff. So 2012, I got divorced, and it was probably the most exciting thing that actually happened to me, which sounds terrible, but I wasn't ready for marriage. So that was a good thing. And then I moved away, and I thought I was going to end up in Hong Kong working with a little boy who had a brain injury, but actually really didn't like his mum. So moved back and then ended up only working like up the road in Berkshire. And the little boy that I looked after was adopted, and he had behaviours that I'd kind of never come across. So considering that I'd always done like special needs and learning disabilities and brain injuries, yeah, he was very interesting. But because he was, they were a really wealthy family, and I think because he had that circumstance, it almost didn't allow for him to have the like normal-ish 2.4 routine stability that like lots of children thrive off of if they've had obviously issues and what have you. So so from that I then went and studied I did some work with a play therapist, and I changed the way that I was working with him because of the guidance that she gave me. And it was so interesting because within the space of about 6 weeks his behavior was totally different. You have to excuse my cough, sorry. Yeah, so his behavior started to change really rapidly, and then I just thought I've got to do this training. It's just so interesting. So then I went and studied and trained to be a play therapist, and that's what I was doing up until like a few years ago. So I stopped doing it privately, mostly just because of my fertility issues. So that's where I've done this from. So then we'll cover what's known as the triune brain. So this theory is based on a theory from Paul MacLean, and he believes that like our brain is set up into kind of 3 parts. So you can see the pink bit in there and the blue bit and the yellow bit. It suggests that it develops in different stages of the evolutionary cycle. So the oldest part of the brain is the brainstem and is potentially the most primitive. And people think that this is what's developed in the uterus. The limbic system is then thought to develop in the first 6 years of life. And then the neocortex is the last part, which helps form our rational thought processes. So obviously, that's like a simple version in my mind, because obviously we know that when you do learning needs or brain injury work, that like if you're struggling to process information or you're not learning in the atypical ways that schools expect, then some of those parts don't match up anyway. I could bore you with the brain for a long time. So within those 3 parts, we've then broken it down into what's known as the reptilian brain. So the reptilian brain is the pink bit you can see at the bottom and is the most primitive part. So every animal, reptile, creature on the planet has a reptilian brain. It's located within our brain, just above our spinal cord. So this part is the part that then essentially develops in the uterus, and it's what supports newborns to kind of go through their sleeping patterns or not sleeping patterns, because obviously we know babies wake in the night. Feeding, urinating, crying, breathing all comes from that part of our brain. And the brainstem then helps support the limbic system to control and manage our energy levels. And the links between the reptilian brain and the limbic system are really quite complex. So a lot of our hormone functions come from those 2 parts of our brain. And then they link with things like your thyroid and other kind of hormonal regulating areas for our thought processes, our body, our physical, everything is just connected in these 2 parts. But we're really abstract thinkers, so we often forget that this part of our brain has quite a fundamental importance to us. So because we're so rational all the time, we forget that part of our brain is probably doing something, and we're unaware that it's released a hormone or released a chemical that we don't even know has existed. So it just occurs and we don't know. So like a good example of that is if someone cuts you up in the morning on your way to work, your reptilian brain will instigate your hormones, and although you think you might be being rational, actually you've probably reacted instead. So often our psychological difficulties stem from the functions of the reptilian brain. So if we have suffered trauma, this can create an imbalance throughout our body. And trauma doesn't have to be really significant. But what they found, I think in terms of research, is that obviously the more trauma you have, if it's significant, like from childhood and things, then that will regulate your patterns as you grow older. So then it's harder to manage some of those things. So we'll move on to the limbic system. So I said this already, but it's linked to the reptilian part of our brain, and it's what's then responsible for monitoring our danger and emotional responses. So the amygdala is a key part of the limbic system, and it is what's responsible for the hormone cortisol, which is our stress chemical. So the cortisol links with your adrenaline, when you're triggered by something, that's when your body responds to the stressor. So that's where you'll feel like the increased heart rate, or you might, get sweaty or feel a bit shaky, and then that will instigate your fight, flight, freeze response. Which, if we go back to like the car cutting you up kind of thing, most people will go into a fight response. So your brain has instigated that because the car that's cut you up has highlighted to you that they've put you in danger. So then your body, or the words come out of your mouth, I won't say any if children are still listening, but the words that come out of your mouth essentially is why you've responded in that way, because your reptilian, your limbic system has determined that that was a threat. So that part of our brain, in terms of like where the amygdala then links with the hippocampus and other sensory based feeling things, you can see them on the diagram, will then pre-program our brains into recognizing comfort, pain, threat, hunger, pleasure, security. So between the reptilian brain and the limbic system, they will wire up neural pathways that then help you predict the future. So if you were cut up by a car every day, the likelihood is that you'd get more and more worried about getting in your car and driving somewhere, because you think eventually something's going to happen, and those worries will create from that area. I hope that makes sense anyway. But then we think too much as human beings, and so our neocortex is our so-called rational part of the brain, and it's highlighted as this front bit here. So like the other pink bits you can see are kind of broken up into things like your occipital lobe, and so it regulates movement and stuff, but that forefront is what supposedly makes us rational. So this part is what essentially differentiates us from other animals. So where you've got things like lions or animals that kind of herd in packs and things, they are said not to have this, or at least have a large part that gives them kind of the thought process or the ability to kind of develop things like language and so forth, which is why there are some, I think, mammals like whales and dolphins that have a bigger capacity within their prefrontal cortex. If you haven't watched it, you should watch Blackfish on Netflix, because that shows you that they believe that killer whales, when they're in their own pods, because their neocortex is so big, they've developed their own language and communication. So when you take a killer whale from a pod and then stick it in SeaWorld or whatever with other whales that don't speak their language, that's why they fight and then kill each other, which is, I think, it's really interesting, because then that's what human beings do, isn't it? Still, really, to this day, we still haven't rationalized that those things, like having wars, are a good thing, So the whole point of the prefrontal cortex is to help us plan, anticipate, inhibit, process context, and help understand other people's feelings, and then manage our impulsivity and our behavior, which is really difficult, because obviously your reptilian brain and your limbic system have already pre-programmed you with your fight, flight, stuff. So determining what's actually real threat and what we actually need to worry about are two very different things. So the easiest way to put it is, obviously, like if you go back to cavemen or Viking days or something like that, we would have been spending more time fighting with other communities. We would have had to determine, we're going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. And so that part of our brain is still really, is so developed, but we're not necessarily going to be able to change it, because that's the bit that rationalizes the hormones for threat. But our threat now, obviously in 2024, is not the same as it was, at the start of time. If we then have things that trigger us, the likelihood is that they're going to be less relevant than what they would have been, which is why you almost get like an irrational thinking part. So you think something's a threat, and people aren't connecting that thing that's upset them or made them angry isn't necessarily the feeling. It's that something has released the chemicals, so you're just being reactive to the situation. So if I move on to trauma and brain development, so our brain and body work together to determine potential threats when our reptilian and limbic brain feels stressed and overwhelmed. So I've already said this, but we release adrenaline and cortisol. So it's the prolonged exposure to stress is what can make our brain not develop in a typical way. So it can impair growth and growth development, both physically and emotionally. And it's that constant stressor. So if we go like back to childhood, so this is not to upset anybody, okay, but we then have those hardwires put in us from that early age, you know. So we're obviously all unique individuals and we'll all respond to stress in different ways, which is why, you know, you see some people who have been through horrific trauma, but they come out the other side, you know, they might train to do a specific job, or they coach other people, or, you know, they go and live about their lives in a positive way. And then you'll find others that go through sets of trauma that end up committing murder and have prison sentences and so forth. So I just think it's really interesting that it doesn't matter, you know, you can't necessarily predict which people or which person is going to respond which way to stress. So from that little diagram there, ideally your survival part should be the smallest part. So if you're a child and you're crying and then your parents come to you, they feed you, they comfort you, they change your nappy, all those things will help them regulate that when I don't feel okay, someone's going to come and help me. So then that's where you build up to the like, okay, so we can regulate our emotions, and then we start to learn the social context and things, which is why babies learn to smile, because they're mirroring you. So that's how they wire up their mirror neurons. And then eventually you reach that part of the neocortex where they begin to, you know, rationalize those things. So a good example is Hattie is now constantly tantruming, and while she's trying to regulate and understand her social context, in the same sense, she's trying to build in that cognition as well. So yes, we do sit at the table for dinner, unfortunately, for her, and we're not going to be sitting, you know, in the garden all the time or on the floor making a mess. So like there's all these little things that you'll do as parents to like reinforce like safe behaviors, and or when they hurt themselves. So obviously most kids are falling over and bumping their heads, so you're going to go to them and comfort them. That all helps in the left side of that upside down triangle, to like building positive typical development. But if you have parents who are less responsive, then your survival mode is going to be greater. So most of us have some form of trauma that presents in our lives. It doesn't have to be childhood necessarily. Like for me personally, my biggest part of my trauma is my fertility, and that's taken a long time to manage. But if you've got parents essentially who don't respond to your early needs, then you don't necessarily learn to regulate, because you learn that nobody's coming for you and nobody's going to feed you, nobody's going to comfort you. And so then your cognitive function and your ability to understand those emotions just aren't there. So you'll react more than you rationalize. And obviously the thing that's like being researched and looked at now is actually that it's not children aren't necessarily not having their needs met, but what they're being given is a screen, and so that's filtering into this state, the same level of like developmental trauma, because what they're not doing is learning how to develop in like the atypical way, where they should be hands-on in the garden, you know, doing all those things that kids do, where they just figure out stuff for themselves. So what we end up doing potentially as we go through our kind of childhood, teens, what have you, is that we become stuck in like a set of behaviors. So they're then the behaviors that we've learned, and those are the ones that we use to cope. I think that makes sense. So what happens then is that through that early year stuff, we develop attachment styles, which I think is quite key to. So so when your brain is then wired up in a secure way, you'll then figure out that you've got a certain attachment style. And what you can find is that you can flip between attachment styles too. So just going through these quickly, they're quite easy to read, but like a secure attachment, you know, healthy relationship with primary caregiver, shows appropriate distress when left alone, seeks support in relationships, regulate emotions, manage conflict in relationships, ambivalent attachment style, limited parenting availability, craves closeness in relationships, this one, distressed when left, need for reassurance, feelings of anxiety or jealousy, avoidant, you can have an abusive or neglectful caregiver, no preference for parental presence, independent, pattern of withdrawal, tendency to minimize feelings, preference for casual relationships, and disorganized attachment, inconsistent parenting, intimate relationships feel confusing, feelings of unworthiness, tendency towards aggressive or antisocial behaviors. So the little boy that I had nannied was sat in the disorganized area, and there is one more, but I can't remember what it is, but it's almost like a notch up from disorganized. Yeah, I can't remember what it is. It begins with an R. So we'll all have a specific attachment style that then links back to how our reptilian limbic brain and neocortex has all functioned in our early childhood. But the good thing about attachment styles is that you can flip them, or you might be some of one and like slightly some of another. So I'm quite avoidant, but equally I can be quite secure in relationships. So you probably find that if you read those that there is a balance. But when we rewire our brain, you're then able to change some of these patterns anyway. So that's just like an overview of attachments. We've all got an attachment style, and you might find that your attachment style with your parents is one, but your attachment style with your partner is something else. Your attachment style with certain friends are different as well. So it does fluctuate. What have I got next? So what constitutes as trauma? So, I mean, I love this picture because, I mean, it just shows you. So this picture they use in safeguarding training, and the one on the left is of a 3-year-old child who has been developed atypically, has probably a nice, normal, whatever that is, 2.4 kind of family, consistent parenting routines, etc. And that one on the right that says extreme neglect is actually an MRI scan of, I think it was a 3-year-old orphan in Romania, because they're all set out in their beds and there's no stimulation for them and the care is limited. So they'll only have their basic needs met, but they're not being stimulated enough to develop. So even that in itself, so you can have your basic needs met, but then if you have a lack of stimulation or ways to develop, then you potentially, that's still trauma in itself. And trauma is essentially shown to reduce the grey matter in the brain. There was a big study around physical abuse. I should have put the link on, but around physical abuse and how it reduces the grey matter as well. But some of the things that are linked down as like massive traumas are on there: abuse, neglect, domestic abuse, financial worries, health concerns. Like I come across a lot of FE students who are carers for their parents, or they're caring because they've got a disabled child, or, or sibling in the house. So there's lots of things that kind of go into like what essentially is most people's normal lives, but these are things that filter into how we're going to function and develop and so forth. But equally, we are all individuals. So one person might really thrive off of something and another person's going to find that really difficult. But the exciting thing is our brain is made of neuroplasticity, which means that it's malleable and it can change and adapt. So it allows us to organize ourselves, movement, memories, and emotional responses. So our experiences help to shape this. A child's brain is most influential in the first 5 years of life. As we develop into adults, some of our neural pathways disconnect to make new ones. So this allows room for new memories or activities that we do. So it doesn't mean that you've lost all capacity. Maybe I should remember that because I'm always saying about how much I forget. But it's probably maybe I'm just remaking new neural pathways. This is why, though, that when you see people that have been had an injury and they've been told they'll never walk again, why they walk again, because you can potentially rewire your brain and responses to getting things back. And there's obviously lots at the moment around kind of Alzheimer's and dementia, around ways that elderly people can enhance their neuroplasticity. I think things like Sudoku have been like raised, and reading or learning new languages, things like that are helping Alzheimer and dementia patients like live a bit longer and have a little bit more life. So they don't necessarily have to just forget everything and everybody, but they'll be learning new skills to kind of just make things better. But I just think that's really exciting because I think it just shows anything that you learn, you can unlearn and relearn something new. So that's neuroplasticity. And then these are some little things that, to be fair, most of us are already doing that can enhance your neuroplasticity. So mindfulness, changing your environment, playing games. So the games thing, right? Having done play therapy, it's not until you do, like I did that you think, God, as adults, we're so boring. Like, we often use our kids as an excuse to play, but an adult's potential idea of, playing a game is, going to the pub or something like that. Whereas, when was the last time you got like snakes and ladders out and just really wanted, or like frustration, or just really wanted to beat your other half or beat the kids? Like, who cares if they cry at the end of it? It's all part of developing, right? So yeah, reading, rest and sleep is obviously really important. Learning something new, exercise, and all these things help to maintain the neuroplasticity in your brain. And equally, if you're not doing those things and you throw something in, that will create new neural pathways and they join up. I mean, to watch like a neural pathway like establish itself on a YouTube video is worth looking at. And then these were some activities I thought about. So these things will wire up new neural pathways in your brain, and I've done all these. So brush your teeth for 7 days with the opposite hand. It feels really strange to start with, but it's really funny, especially if you do it with somebody else, because you literally watch some trying to do it with Aaron and watching his face figure out if he's moving his hand properly.
Joe Dispenza says that as well, doesn't he? He says do like brush your teeth, do things with the opposite hand, just to nudge your brain out of like just being dead, just being like, like robotic. I've not done it yet. I might do it now.
Can you and Sean film each other doing it together? Because it's fucking hilarious. Sorry. Kids, don't say that, Arabella. Can you and Sean film yourself? Because it'd be so funny.
He's gone out. I'll tell him when he comes back. We're brushing our teeth with the other hand.
Yeah, do it.
Or each other's. Is that even better? Brush someone else's.
Well, Hattie brushes my teeth, which is quite complicated sometimes.
Bless her. Does it go up your nose?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and then the second one on here, like if you've got a mirror that's like a table mirror and you can stick it in front of the paper, you have to draw the star shape looking in the mirror. It's really hard, but it's really good fun.
What do you mean? How do you do that? What do you mean? I can't. My
So
brain.
if you've got a table mirror,
so
just
you look at the mirror to draw. You don't look at the
yeah,
paper.
don't look at the paper.
You've got to see the paper in the mirror, and you look
Yeah,
rather than. Oh, okay.
So
it's
don't
really
look at the paper.
challenging.
Look at the mirror.
Yeah, it's really good. And then you could say hello and learn your name in a different language if you like. And then I've stuck some links on as well. So like I can send this obviously on the group and then you can click on the links and have a look at this stuff. And that's it.
Nice.
Thank you. Good. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces.
Thank you very much. It's a fascinating subject.
Oh, I could talk about it all day.
Some of the stuff you were saying in there is that book that I'm listening to, that Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, the Joe Dispenza one. He talks about that we live too much in survival.
Yeah.
We live too much at the bottom of that triangle that we were showing. And it's like it's trying to move out of that. And actually the survival is like the way he describes it, it's like it's instinct. It's instinct.
Yeah.
And we don't allow ourselves to think differently. We just assume that's the only way it is.
Yes.
I find it really, I'm gonna have to listen to the book again because I've listened to it. It took me 2 weeks to get through listening to it on my walk every day. I'm gonna go again. But he's leading people to meditation with it. But the fascinating stuff that he talks about in there is just, the idea that you can rewire your brain just blows my mind.
Yeah, it is. I think because especially when, like, obviously in my job, you have always been set up in a bunch of systems. So there's always processes to go through and hoops to go through. And so that's where people think they should be. So even with the, even with enrolling in school and stuff like that, people think they need to be, this is what we're doing. So everybody filters into the same categories. And then it's not until you start doing the odd bit that's different that you think, oh yeah, I probably don't need to do that way.
I have a question.
Go on then.
I think it was on slide 7. You were just like talking about the left and right side of the brain when, like, for example, the raising the children and stuff. And like, I know at the moment there's like so much information out there. I've got so many friends that have babies, my sister-in-law, and it's like there's so many different opinions on how to like raise your children at the moment. It's absolutely minefield. But I think you were talking about your left side of the brain and like how that side, I don't know if like this is right, but some parents like really nurture their child and like kind of like tend to their needs a great deal, but then that can also go too far where their survival needs aren't being met, whereas the other side is like they have no like nurturing and so they're survival mode. So like in your opinion, I know there's so many out there, like how do you get that balance when raising children? Like how do you get that fine balance?
So my biggest thing is consistency. So when they train you to do therapy, as long as you have like a set of rules and boundaries. So I've had kids in my sessions that have got wild parents, so they come in wild. And I had a little boy who used to hold a rolling pin, a Play-Doh rolling pin, and go to me, I'm gonna hit you in the face. And I say to him,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. This like you just go through the same and rules, and it was about like it's a safe space. This is a safe space, but actually this is what we stick to. And he never did. He was never going to do it, but he obviously was replaying what he was experiencing in some ways. I think as long as a child has a consistent approach, then that's where that filters better. So I mean, it's hard now. Like with Hattie, I just want to shut her in the cupboard at dinner time. Just go away. Stop throwing yourself on the floor.
Yeah. Do you not also think, Vicky, that the children are different with different people? Because Aurora is completely different with me than she is with her mum. Completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that obviously with the boys. So my stepchildren have a totally different set of behaviours with their mum than they do here. And I would like to say that I think the behaviours are better here. They communicate better here. But we've always allowed for space to talk about our bad days and our feelings. And, you know, like, I think it's really hard because I think parents often think that children need to like conform in a certain way, because that's what we're taught, isn't it, I suppose. But actually, if you allow for them to have a little bit of space to say, do you know, I've had a really terrible day and I don't want to help you do the washing up today, and you listen to that bit, then sometimes that's where that consistent balance comes in for him.
I think with Aurora, it's a case of, because Riley is so, it's all, I've got to do Riley first for rocks. It's, I've got to, let me do Riley first and then I'll come to you. And because she feels a little bit sort of like it's always him first, what about me? When she comes to me, we do talk about that. That it's okay and he's special, and you know, you are just as important as everybody else. But she's only 3 and she totally understands. She's not silly, but she gets frustrated with it. And I'm trying to teach her that it's okay because Riley is different.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of, I don't know if she's got any like social story type books. Those things are really useful on Amazon. Like we bought books for the boys initially about like having 2 homes, and so that they could grasp the concept. So you could probably find something out there that's got like a book about I've got a disabled friend or whatever, and it all goes and links in the metaphor. I think
that's a good idea, actually, Vicky. That's a really good idea. I've bought her. I bought her a Barbie in a wheelchair.
Yeah, anything like that. That just like
for Christmas, because I thought I just need her to understand the concept of, you know, because we thought she wouldn't get clean because he's in nappies, but she has. So she does understand there is, but then sometimes it's like, well, what about me? Like,
so we try, not that we have the same issue here, but obviously the age gap between the kids is quite significant. Like Jacob's 11 and Hattie is 2, and Jacob struggled last week from high school. He's had an ed psych report about he doesn't process and track information. He's severely colorblind. So, you know, he sits in like a grey area of like what you'd see on the spectrum, but not enough to warrant an assessment. But what, I don't want to sound like I'm bad mouthing his mum, it sounds horrible, but what she did the day before was moan at him, why aren't you in the shower, get off your phone, you know, do all this. And actually what I did Tuesday night was sat with him and said to me, right, talk to me about your timetable at school. Which ones are difficult? What have we got to look at? Like, you know, he was sat with his homework, literally like, and I'm like, let's just not do it. And then Hattie is throwing a tantrum at dinner. So, you know, we're going to make time for Jacob now, and then we're going to make time for you. And then I'm going to go and have a meltdown of my own somewhere. But like even those things, I think we forget as like adults that there's, you know, there are other adults that are going to like wind us up, that will trigger our stress response, and we don't even know they've triggered it. Kids are easier to recognize that they've triggered your stress response because you're the alpha as such. It's easier to slip into that, just do what I'm bloody telling you to do. But when it's an adult, we tend to like step back and rationalize. Whereas sometimes we need to almost do the same with the child, because you want them to behave in the modelled adult way. It's quite a big developmental gap.
It was very interesting. I found it very interesting, especially with my hormonal stuff. Because I said the other week, I think that sometimes things annoy me, like people throwing rubbish out of the car or somebody parking in a disabled spot and they're clearly not disabled. And I really want to actually say to them, you know, what are you doing? And it's a waste of my energy. But now I understand why.
Yeah. And we tend to respond more than we give ourselves credit for.
And
it's hard to take the step back. And I think that's what I've had to do going back to work, because you can get so engrossed, especially with disabilities, you can get so engrossed in the negatives and the parents' feedback is so negative quite constantly, and there's not enough support, and there's not enough support, and there's not, and that's where you go constantly with it, and you think, oh, like, you know. So actually now I just go and like, okay, well, this is this bit, but I don't need to be emotionally invested in 380 students with EHCPs. Just doesn't need to happen.
In that book again, he says that if we want to kind of change the way we respond to stuff, we almost need to say out loud when it happens the word change. And so, like, if you talk negatively to yourself, or if you get annoyed with the disabled parking spot, or whatever it is, the rubbish being thrown out, immediately when you feel that, you say the word change out loud. So you're kind of like reminding your brain that you don't need to react to that.
I did that the other day, Kirsty, because I actually thought, no, I'm not going to think that. I didn't say change, but I said, no, I'm not going to think that. It's a waste of energy. And I just carried on with my day.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
I've addressed it, but shoved it off.
Yeah, it's like the because most of us will pick up on, like, obviously, like the vibrational energy of other people. So we're so complex. So then you've got somebody giving negative energy. That's why I don't physically go shopping. I don't go Sainsbury's, Tesco. I can't do it because you just feel everybody, and so I stay away from that. But if you have that,
I never thought of it like that. I literally detest. I hate food shopping. I hate
it's people and
anxiety. It must be the people.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that. I thought it was the actual physical. I guess if I was there by myself, I'd actually love it.
Yeah, like that's why like the 10 o'clock at night shops probably like the best thing,
yeah, but they got rid of a lot of that. They got rid of a lot of that. I used to like that, going really late.
Yeah, no, I get the guy to bring it to the door now because I just don't have capacity for it.
Vicky,
I know I've said it to Kirsty. I don't have a capacity for a lot of human beings. So.
That's become me growing up.
The last 10 years, like, just put me in a field and I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, but people give off a level of projection, and so it doesn't matter. They could walk past you with the raging hump, and if you're quite sensitive to those things, that will bounce off of you.
I pick up on so many people. I'm such an empath. Like, I'll walk in a room and I know immediately how everyone's feeling.
Yeah, so we had to put ourselves in bubbles for therapy sessions.
Really set a boundary with it.
I used to have, so a good example is like doing my sessions. I remember having one kid would constantly make me hungry, but I would have to leave, and all I wanted was like McDonald's or just shit food. Just wanted to like feel myself up. There was one kid who, once I got home, I slept for about 2 hours, and I was like, I've got to find a way to like balance this, because it was, it's so like irregulating. So I went and trained to do Reiki so I could ground myself. But essentially that was then all about putting myself in almost like an invisible bubble wrap. And so that's pretty much what I live in, is invisible bubble wrap when I go everywhere.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm sure you need to in your job. Like, it must be so, rewarding but equally challenging. Yeah. It's incredible what you do.
Well, I miss the therapy side of it because I don't do it now, but yeah, there's still bits of it.
Amazing.
It's amazing. So how do we create new neural pathways then? How do we do that?
Just by doing anything different, isn't it?
All stars backwards in a mirror, Kirsty. That's your first.
Honestly, I'd love to see these stars.
I need to get a mirror. I need to get a mirror that's put on the table. Maybe I'll do it in phone.
That activity came from working in brain injury, and what they were saying is that some of the clients we were working with would potentially develop new neural pathways. I mean, others would. I used to work with a lady who would watch Sky News 24/7, and so to try and get her to watch something else, and we finally managed to get her to like start watching Friends. But otherwise she would watch the same news, obviously go round and round, and she would say the same thing for the whole of the shift. Oh, that's fucking wanker. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, but that star thing came from there, and they got us all to sit in front of the mirror and to try and draw it through the mirror. You're like, what the hell is that? What have I even drawn?
Wow.
Gonna do it. Gonna have a go at it.
anything that tests you would develop new neural pathways as well, essentially. But I do a lot of stuff based on feelings. So you guys obviously do your 5 a.m. and you're really like good at putting your routine in. That doesn't work for me, because if I know that I'm getting to a point that, you know, I'm overwhelmed with whatever, then I know that I'll change it and that I'll feel better for it. So I tend to function off of that side of stuff. That's why I didn't run at 7 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, I didn't think I would enjoy the routine so much, but actually it's like me, I've always said no to getting up early. So saying yes to it, I feel like I've already created a new neural pathway.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, definitely.
That whole ability to do uncomfortable things, and actually it turns out that it's not that uncomfortable and I really like it.
Yeah.
We said the other day that we're going to carry it on if we can for a whole year.
I do it every day anyway. So
Emma's already there. Emma's just got company now.
I just
got a group of girls that are like, yeah, in the morning.
I still wouldn't join like that.
It's weird, because I know that if that wasn't there, like this is the strangest thing. I do know that it would be a lot harder for me if I didn't have to get up and turn the Zoom on. Like if I had my own decision to make, I would only manage one day a week. I just know the excuses would be so much easier in my head. And like I do get up out of bed in the morning and go, oh yeah, I don't need to go for a walk today. I'm always talking myself out of the stuff that I know I'm going to do. But by the time I've sat down here and done a few bits and pieces, and then I'm like, oh, I really want to go for my walk now. It's a totally different mentality. But if you weren't on the Zoom, that excuse would probably be louder, and I would allow it to happen, which is, yeah,
But that's perfectly normal, Kirst, because I talk myself out of everything I do and still do it anyway.
Exactly. I think that would be the next test for me, is doing it without there being an accountability for it. It's like the accountability.
I'm sure I can make you accountable some way or another.
That would be the next step. And then having a routine on the weekend is now probably needed as well, because the weekends tend to be a lot more messy without that morning shit going on.
Yeah, I do like to relax a little bit on a weekend, because I think I like to give myself a little bit of something rather than regimental getting up at that time every morning, because it is very tiring. I mean, come the afternoon, I'm tired. Like I am drained. Yeah. And there is days where I'm not, which is why I log on to the Zooms in the evening at 8:30. But it is depending on what my work schedule has been like as well. I can be in bed and asleep at 7:30.
Yeah. Sounds lovely, really.
There's definitely a dip. Well, it tends to be worse. Like 1 week of the month is worse, but there's definitely a dip at around 4.
Cycle.
Yeah, but it's worse.
Yeah.
But worse 1 week, but there is a dip in my energy. So it's like I have to kind of like recoup for a bit, and then I have to get myself ready for calls so that I've got the energy for calls with people. And then the weekends now are filled with calls as well. So it's just like, it's constant. So I'm trying to find at least one day where I can at least not be on Zoom with people.
Yeah, or even that, the screen will be oversaturating, won't it?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah, I do find staring at a screen all day can be like quite testing on you as well, because I do that all day, every day.
Yeah, so same.
It is.
My life's been like recently. It's just the screen.
And I think the weather changing as well at the moment for me has been. I didn't think it would creep in as bad, but I haven't been to the gym for like 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising. I thought.
Yeah. So I went out to do my ice bath the other day, and unfortunately I think I said the water in it has gone a bit scummy, so I've had to empty it, but I've refilled it again now. I don't want to use chlorine in it. So I've refilled it. But anyway, I'm going to get back in that next week because the weather's meant to be really, really cold.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot lower than what it normally is. So that should spike me to give me an energy boost as well. But I'm going to join a new gym because I think it's the gym, the atmosphere in the gym as well that I'm not feeling.
Yeah, when I was a gym bunny before, which obviously I'm not anywhere near that now, but when I was before, what I actually learned was taking a whole week or even 2 weeks off. I would go back and I would be stronger. I could lift more because I was giving my body the rest that it needed in between. But I told myself up to that point till I think I was forced to. I think I popped my calf. So I was kind of like forced to stay at home, and I was still going in trying to do upper body stuff. My PT was like, no, just go and actually just rest. And then I came back and it was like, I was like superwoman. I was like, I thought I was going to have lost all my strength, but actually I had more. It was just, yeah, madness.
I'm going to join a gym where they've got a sauna as well and a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'll have a lot more than just Absolute's fine, but it's a very muscle gym.
Yeah, that's what ours is like. Yeah, it's just a warehouse with some stuff in it.
Which is why I now need that. I think I'm looking for more, especially on a Saturday when I want to make it more about me and what I want rather than a quick in and out.
Yeah, it can become like a day out rather than a chore, can't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't. There's just no gyms here. Like there's just nothing. It's the one that we go to is like 5 minute walk, but it is like that. It's like a
warehouse
dirty gym with some stuff in it, which is fine. But you know, like sometimes it's quite nice to be around people. We go in, there's no one there. Like it's just random few people every now and again. Lunchtime, you've got a few older people in there. In the morning, you've got all the bros in there or whatever. But I like the energy of people in a gym. Like I enjoy that. Like I find it a lot more motivating in a weird sort of way. Like just to be there with equipment. It's like even music doesn't work. It's like I need the energy of others. Same with it. I like going supermarket shopping. I'm literally in my world. And I didn't realize I did this until recently, but I hum and sing in my own head. It's slightly out loud, which is probably
she definitely hums out loud.
Yeah, and I read it was a thing that disconnects whatever's happening outside to your brain, so that it's like a natural thing that you don't. And I go around the supermarket humming and singing my way around, literally in my own world. I don't have any notice of anybody else's energy at all. The only time I did
Julia Bradbury, you know what I mean? This lady. Can you see this?
Julia. Send it to me. I don't know who it is. I don't
know.
You know her?
No, don't think I do.
No, well, she's the walker. Well, she said today humming is a simple tool to downregulate your nerve system and calm yourself.
There we go. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm humming all the time.
Yeah, it's on her page today. It popped up. How weird is that?
As a child, my mum was a hairdresser. When she used to do my hair, she would literally get so annoyed. Be like, will you stop singing? Will you stop humming? Sit still. Will you stop this? Stop. Constantly telling me to stop. So I think that's why instead of being out loud with my singing, it went a lot more inward. So I was still doing it. I was probably being more annoying. But anyway.
You'll have to do the opposite then.
What? Sing out loud?
Yeah, sing out loud or not at all. And then just see it like how it makes you feel.
It's not it's an automatic. I'll have to just notice I'm doing it. I've only noticed recently. I'm sure I've done it my whole life, but I've only noticed recently. So I'll have to notice I'm doing it to be able to stop. I know I'll just go straight back into it. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Yes, it was good. Really interesting. Interesting.
Got me through Ofsted this week, so
always handy.
Yeah, I sanded it in the office.
Why not? Use their time, not yours.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've put it in the staff PD file.
Love it. What are we saying, Meg? Are we going to be back on to the schedule or not yet?
TBC.
Right, okay. We decide.
I'll let you guys know.
We can decide then what. Okay, why don't we, between now and the next one, all try and do those things that Vicky said to try?
Totally agree.
I want to see the star
Totally agree.
pictures.
We have to
Video it every
proof.
morning, the
We have to have
toothbrush.
proof of this and proof of the stars. And next time we can come with a new language that we've learned to say, hello, how are you? We all have to learn a new language and say that.
Well, it's hello, your name, isn't it? What your name is, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. You say what you want, and you know,
Okay.
we're totally inappropriate and rude, and we would never know.
Yeah, I know a few rude words in different languages, which is weird, but I know a few hellos. I need to find a hello that I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I'm going to do Italian because actually I would quite like to learn Italian. I'm sure
I can
somewhere
say
in a past life I lived in Italy.
I need to learn. I want to learn Spanish.
I can count one.
I need to learn Spanish. All of my managers are Spanish.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah, all of them, every single one of them. And I have a hell of a lot of staff that are Spanish. So I really need to lead it. I mean, sometimes the guys say to me, I say to them, oh, did you say this, this, and this? And they go, yeah, you've half got it. You know what we're saying. But it's
that's exactly the same as me, because in America I worked with so many South Americans, like they were all speaking Spanish around me, and I would tune in, I'd be like, you just said, I know exactly what you're saying, but for me it's the actual verb, like saying it myself. That part of my brain needs to be switched on. I don't know where that would be, Vicky. But
I used to work with factory owners in Spain, and because I was there like once a month for a whole year, I was there once a month, and I was taken around by these people that obviously spoke English and Spanish. But we'd go to the factories, and I would be like, yep, and I would literally answer them, but in English, and he would look at me going, does she know what I'm saying? As if he was saying, well, I was just talking about her and just talking about the price of this, that, and the other, and now she knows what I'm saying. You could see the horror look on his face. But it was like, yeah, it was weird. I didn't know what they were saying, but I did know what they were saying.
Yeah.
Just the strange.
That must be how a child learns.
Must be, yeah.
Must be the same process.
My nephew's literally now grown up bilingual. It's wild. He's like 2.5 now. And he's speaking, his English is getting really good, but you'll say to him, like, how does mummy say car? And he'll repeat it back in Czech. And I'm just like, okay, you're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But like, he knows exactly what his mum's saying.
My friend's children learned 3 languages. So it was English, Spanish, and her family were Dutch. So there was the 3, and the children didn't speak until they were nearly 3, and it was because they were fluent in 3 languages.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That is incredible. Such a skill.
Yeah, they say being around it is the best way. My auntie moved to Hungary when she was like 18, and she didn't speak not a word of Hungarian, but she said she went and just sat every day in a cafe and just listened. And obviously that she's now in her 60s, so it's a long time ago. It's not like there was the internet to kind of learn from and stuff, but she said that was the only way, and she just picked it up. And obviously her husband was Hungarian, didn't have much English, so eventually she became fluent. She's back here now, and she's now an interpreter.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's great. It's fantastic. I wish my nan would have taught me, because she was German, but we lived in Spain for quite a while. But because she was German and she travelled with the Red Cross in the war, she didn't want anybody to know she was German, so she wouldn't speak it.
Yeah,
I think that happens quite a lot back then. Yeah, that's a really common.
So it's such a shame, because I could have been taught fluent German from my nan, English, and then when we lived in Spain, my nan was quite fluent. So yeah, doesn't matter now though.
No.
I'm sure I'll learn.
Let's make that a plan then, to learn a phrase that we can say in whatever language for next time. Yeah. See you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Thank you, Vicky. That was great.
Have a nice Sunday.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.